Hi, folks. Good afternoon, and welcome to the second episode of the FinAlyzer show. My name is Sriram, and I'll be your host for today. FinAlyzer show is a show brought to you by Beyond Square Solutions, and the objective of this show is to help you acquaint with what happens in that mysterious part of every organization called the CFO's office. And we will endeavor to bring you more episodes in the months to come. And today is a particularly exciting day for me because we are on our second show. Not just that, but we have somebody very interesting, very experienced, and very enigmatic, I should say, as our guest. And his name is Vinod Shenoy, or Vinod as he prefers to be called. And he comes with about 17 years of experience in the finance, accounting, and operations space. His body of work is across a wide spectrum. He's worked in public accounting with the Big Fours. He's worked in the audit function. He's worked in the capital market function. He's worked in accounting, SOX, debt syndication, a wide spectrum of experience. And also the industries he has worked in is equally diverse, ranging from automotives to logistics to mining, and now in the technology space. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure again to welcome Vinod Shenoy to the show. Good afternoon, Vinod, and welcome.
Hi, Sriram. Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to all the lovely people in the audience.
Thank you so much, Vinod, for making time, considering the busy schedule that you have and the fact that it's quarter end and month end, etc. So why don't we kind of do a deep dive, Vinod, into the show, taking a cue from your own experience. So how did the whole thing start for you as an individual? The entire journey in finance? Was it one of those premeditated thoughts that you had in class 9 that you will get into the finance space, or is it something that you just picked up along the way? How did the whole thing work for you?
Well, it is a bit of serendipity, if I may say. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be an engineer originally.
Okay.
And as life turned out, I wanted to then get into commerce because I wanted to be closer to business and numbers per se. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you change in terms of your interest and liking.
Sure.
So I ended up doing a CA, then I did my CPA after about 5-6 years, and then now I'm doing my MBA from IIM Bangalore, under a course called PGPM. So
Mm-hmm.
and in terms of the corporate life, I initially started with the audit function, and then I moved on to US GAAP and IFRS. If you ask me whether it was planned, honestly, I was desirous of it. I was working, I was gaining knowledge on it. I desired it strongly. I attempted and I got it. But then, such is the thing that you then want to sort of get on and disrupt yourself once more. And I later said, okay, I want to get into SOX and internal controls because both of these go together,
Mm-hmm.
giving a holistic view of finance. Went into SOX, then I said, okay, these two are good. Now I need to get closer to the business, as was my original goal. So went into product controllership, or FP&A as it is called. And one thing led to another, got into the role, got into FP&A. Then there is that debt because finance is also responsible for raising capital and the interactions with bankers. Um, I honestly feel that CFO is like a winger. If I have to sort of look at it as a football match, it's the football flavor now.
Sure. Sure.
CFO is like a winger and CEO is a striker. So you
Mm-hmm.
need to support your CEO and and be available and seen with the vendor partner or the customer. So I was involved with my legal colleagues and the business head in negotiating contracts, and it gave
Hmm.
me a fantastic idea of the aspects beyond numbers, which is very important because numbers are always a lag indicator.
Sure.
When it comes, the number actually crystallizes most of the thing is done, but it's what you can do, what you can decipher, and how you can react with those numbers. So this sort of experiences then helped me position myself for a period of let's say about 12 years into a CFO role.
Hmm.
Then I've not stopped there. I've before I got a CFO break, I gained some knowledge on tax aspects, some aspects on the capital markets in terms of the debt market, which is helping me now. So yeah, so in terms of anybody who wants to get into finance, this is one option. But the core message I would say is to you only have two choices, either to be disrupted or be disruptive, and you just need to think that you have 3 years and you have to rehire yourself with new skills.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I would say that each one will have his journey like me, and you need to ask, okay, if I have to rehire myself, what are the skills that I need?
Hmm.
So I'll pause here and then maybe
Sure, sure. Vinod, I think that was pretty interesting. And I was just making some notes as you were responding. And I couldn't but notice that you used the word disruption thrice, not once, not twice, but thrice. And you said disrupt once more. And then you said you had to kind of reskill yourself, rehire yourself, think of, how would you rehire yourself, say, within a time span of 3 years. So that kind of brings me to the next question. Considering the long journey that you have had, and and I'm sure in your earlier stints also, you would have had some interactions with the CEOs, maybe related to the specific role that you were performing, down to the role that you are currently delivering as a CFO. How have you seen the CFO role evolve over these years?
I think that's a great question, Sriram. Yeah, so the traditional idea of a CFO is more lean, and I'm sort of generalizing. And
Sure,
generalizing, I'm not talking about the outlier or the 20%. I'm talking about the 80% here.
sure.
CFO is generally seen more as somebody who's internal facing, if I may say, numbers driven, compliance oriented, tax, audit, etc. So that's the traditional role that I'll sort of label it as traditional.
Hmm.
Now, where it has evolved is today, as I said, number is a lag indicator, and the environment today is vastly different. For example, the CEO needs inputs from his CTO, and he needs input from his CFO on what are the new threats, like cybersecurity.
Sure,
And a P&L is a good story on how we are spending on cybersecurity. Let me sort of explain this.
sure.
What is the quality of a cybersecurity spend? Does it have a people element? Does it have a tools or the software element? Does it have the audit or review element? So if these three elements are there, then is that enough?
Hmm.
What is your vendor pool saying? What is your vendor partner saying? So this sort of an engagement, I think CFO can play a strategic role. Just as an example. The
Sure.
second thing I definitely see is a CFO needs to be more aware about the industry. Uh, he needs to be more aware of what his vendor partner is doing and how it can help the company. We have a lot of talk on sustainability, right? And being a CFO, sustainability is not just a word for me. It has an implication on the business, either on the compliance side or here the intent side, or let's say the vendor partner is using sustainable or green energy. It drives down the cost at the vendor partner level. Let's say you're engaging a data center service center,
Sure.
and he goes towards renewable energy. So it has an impact on the cost. So CFO needs to be more. externally engaged also.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, going back, CFO should visualize himself as a winger in a football match, supplying those passes. He's not the
Mm-hmm.
only guy who's supplying passes, but he is the key guy who is supplying passes to the CEO, who is a striker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a team game.
That's sure, Vinod. I think that's interesting, and this is something that when I also engage with CEOs or CFOs, either informally or in a formal mode, this sort of comes into play that uh, these silos that existed previously. For example, the let's take the example that you gave, the CTO and the CFO. While the silos from a functional perspective still continue to exist, the level of interactions that the C-suite has is far more frequent and far more forward-looking together. That's what I've been hearing from people, and that kind of resonates in your message also. Which kind of brings me to the next question, Vinod, is that how do we how do CFOs kind of start gelling better with the others in the C-suite? What is the mindset change that needs to happen?
Yeah.
Because as you said, leaving aside the outliners, traditionally there is still the compliance aspect of it. So how does that how does that one uh, build that bridge so that there is better C-suite interaction, and that brings not just benefit, business benefit, but it probably cascades down the teams also, which adds more value to the organization.
There are a couple of things that I do.
Mm-hmm.
I have a, if I can call it a ritual, I typically, tend to have a cup of coffee with my marketing head. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's just that we love our coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And, it gets into a setting where things are a bit more informal. I understand his perspective, which is very, very important because he's closer to business.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of helps me question my thought. Okay, am I doing enough? Am I thinking the right way? And if I have a perspective, then I tell that to him. Similarly, with another, say, a legal function, otherwise, I typically tend to meet them outside the office,
Mm-hmm.
and have a chat, in an informal setting. And this can be done in a formal setting as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
having those frequent chats, the frequency could be a weekly or once in 3 days, to just be familiar. And the second aspect would also be to be knowledgeable about their space and their terminologies.
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to a CTO, so I need to do, and I'm say again going back to one example of data center, I need to sort of understand what's the difference between a tier 3 and a tier 4 data center. What are the various aspects of a data center? Is he getting, if I'm talking to a CISO, is he getting all the reports that the data center committed to us? So these sort of questions, uh, it's not just about saving costs, it's about what we are getting out of the money that we are putting in the business.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one aspect at an individual level.
Mm-hmm.
And the other aspect is that you also need to encourage your team to have the team interaction, because they need to be familiar and it needs to be driven down as a culture also. It's not just enough that I understand the CTO or the marketing head and that's done. So it has to have that familiarization aspect at a team level.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think these are the quick tips that I do practice, and I would certainly want to share with the audience. Yes.
I think they're very, you said they're simple ones, Vinod, but I think they're simple. But at the same time, based on what you said, they seem to be extremely powerful and effective also. And I guess it's just a question of both intent and also finding the time to do that, and letting that cascade across the teams, which I think is very important. And that's something that you highlighted. And I just want to, kind of dwell a little bit more on this, on the interaction, but in a focused on one particular element, which is around technology.
Yeah.
There's a lot of focus in the last probably decade or decade and a half around digitization, digital transformation, automation, call it by whatever name you want. This would kind of, this probably started off with purely a cost saving measure when everything at the back end would get automated, etc., at least in the days when I used to work. And then it's at somewhere, then it went very forward looking. How is it going to get more revenue? It was all about websites and links and this and that. The CFO office were more or less, kind of cocooned, if one could say, from this. But today, there is increasing use of technology in the office of the CFO. There is so much of technology that is being used for, say, for example, financial consolidation, reporting, etc. Uh, so, as a CFO, for a CFO to really kind of, embrace the benefits of digital transformation, the need is one thing, okay? The sheer pressure to do that is another thing. But to really be able to derive value from that, how does a CFO balance between the technology, allure of something, the entire platforms and tools and what have you, versus the business benefit on the one hand, and also the ensuring that what we're doing is actually right, it is relevant for the organization, we're able to partner with organizations, vendors who are really able to bring value to the table. That kind of becomes a very difficult ball to juggle in my view. So what has helped you in doing this effectively?
Well, one is to have conversations internally,
Hmm.
and the second is, what do I want to achieve? Is it a business problem that I'm trying to solve? In the
Hmm.
sense that, am I trying to make transactions more smoother, or am I trying to have richer information, right?
Hmm.
So let's say there are a portfolio of technologies that you can look at, like whether I need to invest in a consolidation tool. Now, can it then interact with a data visualization tool where you have smarter charts and all that? Then you go down and ask yourself, am I doing forecasting the right way, or is there a better way? There is an increased emphasis today on data sciences
Hmm.
and analytics. So past is a good predictor of the future. So there's an increased use of statistics. So compared to my traditional Excel based approach, can I use any of these tools? So, and even in analytics, you need to sort of ask yourself, okay, there's this problem. So then, does this need automation, which is basically automating the simple task, or do I need something more cognitive,
Hmm.
which identifies patterns? So, as you said, as I said, it starts with asking yourself what is the problem that you're trying to solve,
Hmm.
and then you need to decide on how am I going to digitize things and how is it going to help me solve that problem. Don't digitize for the sake of it. And the other piece is, keep talking to the talking to the people who are offering services in the market.
Hmm.
uh, all the best ideas happen in a conversation, and I do
Hmm.
that. I talk to some of the automation companies, have conversation, and I get some very good ideas from them, and then see if I can automate things. So it's important to engage. CFO's role is no longer sitting in his cabin and having those internal based interaction. It's actually going out to people, be it with his colleagues in their cabin or elsewhere, and you know having those conversations.
Interesting, interesting. Vinod, I think, again, if I can go back to what you said, going back to my notes, you spoke about the importance of identifying what is the need for automation, what is the problem that we are trying to address, and engaging with people for better ideas. And those, I guess, form the two bases on which one is able to drive digital transformation so that it actually adds value to the function,
And how is it going to integrate to the rest of the
the
system?
rest of the
Because
system.
it has
Sure.
to make sense overall.
Overall, yeah. So I think, yeah, so the entire project management principles, I think, come into play over there. That's interesting, Thanks for that. I mean, that's good insight, especially the one on being in touch with, your vendors, vendor partners, to kind of bounce off ideas, thoughts, hear from them. I think that's a very important thing. And that kind of takes me to the next question, if I may, is as much as there is so much of transformation happening in the CFO office, as it were, and all of us are witness to it, uh, equipping people in the finance office of the finance, with uh, ready and relevant skills is also something that is extremely important, because they also need to be kind of adept and comfortable with what is happening around them. And how have you gone, how did this happen to you when you were in your younger days, and what are some good practices you have kind of imbibed from there, which you apply with your team? Maybe you could share one or two experiences. That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, equipping people with the right knowledge probably comes with practicing oneself, what you're preaching. You need to equip yourself first with the right knowledge, and then have a program, have a training program. Find out the interest of your colleagues, your staff, and to in terms of what they want to do. It should gel well with the your organizational objective. That said, and it needs a bit of investment of time. It needs a bit of forward planning, like uh, would a if for a youngster who joins, let's say in my team, would an analytics course help him and help
Hmm.
my function? So then
Hmm.
I seek out and I get him sponsored for an analytics course. Similarly, would a data visualization course help in the overall objective? I mean, couple of themes that I really find which are very important for any finance professional is, apart from the ones that I mentioned, is, knowledge about sustainability reporting, uh, a basic knowledge of, cybersecurity, some good knowledge of economics. These are the things that are, and I'm it's not a general kind of an advice. Part of it can be picked up, part of it can be uh, can be left out, but we need to find our interest. And somewhere the millennials today don't want to be stuck in a particular role or a particular job, so you need to make that interesting. you
Sure.
know let's say an account payable person who's doing account payable, you can give him exposure in GST, you can give him the training in GST, and then make him do that additional aspect of GST. And there could be a good subtle rotation, wherein I go back to operational management principle, wherein you have built capacity across, you have built a multi-skilled team yourself, whereas you've taken care of the aspirations of your team who want to do
Hmm.
multiple things. Millennials generally are a bit
Hmm.
restless. They don't like monotonous stuff. They like to contribute. They like you to listen more. So these things of having a multi-skilled team works well with this attitude of the millennials. Where you're keeping the capabilities available across the team,
Hmm. Hmm.
and as well as catering to their ambitions. So
Okay.
yeah, so I'll stop there.
Sure, sure. Vinod, I think that's pretty informative, because again, I could take away three things. First is, you said each one of us needs to identify what is really our aspiration, where we want to get to, right? So that's one aspect of what you said. The second was, of course, exposing oneself, seizing those opportunities to be able to work on different dimensions, okay, which I guess in a millennial crowd is much more easier to do, because they seem to be far more embracing of this. And third is, as a team, you are able to build in redundancies and not kind of become person dependent, or kind of helps you in probably getting better ideas and managing your risk better, etc. I think
Yeah.
it looks like a fairly win-win proposition to be able to do this. And we had some comments coming in, where and that's something that I wanted to take up
I
next.
just need to answer
Sure.
one second part of your question, which is how So from this side of the this thing, where I am just a starter, so I constantly sort out people who have experience, and I express my desire to learn. So I've been lucky
Hmm.
that way that I've sought out help, and I've had good mentors because I approached them. So that part is
Hmm.
also that part is also very important in a young professional's career, that they need to seek out and be open about what they want.
Hmm.
So
That's
I
yeah.
didn't answer the second part, so I'm sort of plugging
Sure,
that part.
sure. Yeah. I think that's also pretty relevant, what you said, to be able to, ask and reach out. I mean, we see a lot of these statements, and people beyond the time tend to take it in a very generic sense. You need to go and ask, etc. But I think there's real worth and value in those. And for those youngsters who are tuned in and listening, I do hope it kind of reiterates the importance of asking, which you probably might be hearing maybe 10 to 15 times a day. Here's a live example of somebody who has actually benefited from it, and who is also passing on a benefit to his team today. And that's an important aspect too. Um, and So one question we have, Vinod, and that's from Venkat, is uh, in terms of the roadmap adopted by the CFO office vis-a-vis digital transformation. How does that play out? In terms of a thought process, how is that kind of conceptualized? And
Well, first is the basic processes of a CFO's office, be it the PO and some of the other stuff in terms of vendor management. You need to make it mobile ready. If it's an
Mhm.
approval, it should be, you can do it on a mobile. So that brings space to your system, and that reduces the slowness of a response and a follow up, and the time that is wasted on the follow up. So that's one part. That's a very basic low hanging fruit that the CFO's office should attack. So to be able to not only digitize but to make it mobile available. The second thing is, we should look at tools like, there are some very good tools like Hyperion, FinAlyzer on the consolidation part or reporting part, and how they can integrate with some of the um, what do you call business data, non-financial numbers or business data. So
Mhm.
that's the second aspect that I would definitely see. The third thing is to see if I can automate, and there's a culture aspect, there's a fear aspect also. You need
Mhm.
to somehow tell the employees that, look, me automating will not eat away your job, because that's not
Sure.
the purpose of automation.
Mhm.
Purpose of automation is to automate things which are very plain and repetitive, needs accuracy, so that the employee time is spent more on the creative thinking or the or the interactions which are important, what you do with the data basically. So that
Mhm.
culture aspect and the automation initiatives, in
Mhm.
terms of be it a cognitive based automation or a or a simple manual transaction which is done fast. So these three themes are definitely important, and if you can implement an ERP, nothing like it, along with some of these tools for MSME, I would definitely suggest these.
Sure. Sure. I think that was pretty. I especially like the aspect that you started off with, the mobile dimension of it, which kind of accelerates the entire process, and that's something we naturally expect in every system. When as consumers, we want everything to be available on the mobile.
Yeah.
whether it's being able to pay a bill or book a ticket or what have you. So translating that, or kind of extrapolating that to the workplace and what we do as a process in our work, I think that's extremely critical and crucial. And then you spoke about the entire consolidation piece, which again assumes a lot of importance, plus the automation track that you spoke of, and the the inhibitions that one has
Yeah.
in terms of what would happen to what I do, etc. And that's where if the teams are able to be reskilled, and they are up the curve constantly, it kind of adds those opportunities and ties up nicely. I think that's kind of a nice holistic picture, Vinod. I think we have time for a couple of questions. And one of them, or three, if I may, I'm just pushing the envelope here. The first one was around going back to what you said. You right at the beginning, as an individual, you were kind of trying to find opportunities to learn new things. And you also mentioned the fact that you are doing a program now, an MBA program from IMB. So how does this whole thing, where does this whole thing stem from? One is the need to do it. How do you actually find the time and the energy to invest, in reskilling, learning, unrolling, relearning, all the kind of pet phrases that we hear? How do you actually kind of reinvent yourself and get back to it again and again?
Well, you need to be motivated. You see, because job, you can take it as a work, 8 hours job, or you can take it as a passion.
Mm-hmm,
Uh, and you need to ask yourself, what are the things that you need after 3 years? Again, I need to rehire myself after 3 years, right? So I asked that question and I said, MBA is the thing that I need to do because I need to relate to what is happening in marketing, let's say digital marketing,
mm-hmm,
strategy aspects. I need to have finer uh, nuances of strategy aspects. I need to understand analytics more.
mm-hmm,
So these are the things that have pulled me into an MBA.
mm-hmm,
And it's been very, very fruitful. And I think my organization has really supported me there.
mm-hmm.
My board of directors, my chairman, my MD, they've been very supportive of it. So it can't happen without that support.
Sure.
Uh, but then these things again, I go back to what I said, that you need to ask yourself what you need after 3 years. And if you're very clear about this is what you need, it's like a cricket match. You have six balls and you know what you need to score. Uh, yeah, time is definitely, there is a bit of weekend, there is a lot of weekend that I spend updating myself, but then this is needed.
Sure. And I'm sure it's an investment, and a brilliant one at that. Yeah. And so that kind of brings me to the penultimate question, which is around a lot of folks. There are a lot of chartered accountants out there. A lot of people are keen on pursuing careers in by doing their CA, CPA, etc., etc. So if there are two pieces of advice for them, what would they be from your end?
Uh, One is interact with professionals outside your stream.
Mm-hmm,
It be the engineers or the marketing people in a very in their language, in their terms. Don't get stuck with finance.
sure.
The second is what's your end goal after 10 years? And what are the things in finance that you need to equip yourself? And what are the things in the business side? Like I'm in technology today. So I know
Mm-hmm.
what clearly I need to look at in terms of the skills in technology or the knowledge in technology. So have that clarity. And then I think rest would fall in place. These two things are very important.
Interesting, interesting. Thanks, Vinod. I think they kind of ring true, especially the part where you need to be engaging with uh, people for folks from other streams. And there's so much out there. It's far more easier to do it today, thanks to social media and business platforms that are available. It's far more easier to do it.
Problem is,
and
Sriram,
mhm,
problem is, Sriram, there, we have all our biases emanating from a function, right? I'm a finance guy. I tend to look things at a very critical or a negative way, if I may say.
mhm,
So those biases get covered when you talk to a different stream.
mhm, mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's also about removing some of the biases and
Mhm.
looking
Yeah.
things in a more full of perspective.
Yeah. 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 That's important. I think there's some comments coming in, and Venkat kind of agrees with your point on, how automation can be used positively so that we can bring out the best in every member of our team, and people can truly be adding value to the organization, which kind of makes them, engaged, as it were. I think Venkat kind of concurs with what you say. And that brings me to my last question, Vinod. And this is something that uh, stayed in my mind when we had a sidebar conversation the first time we spoke, which probably was about a month back or probably 45 days back, which was around your interest in F1 racing. Okay, so how did that start about? And we were just kind of curious to hear about your interest in that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big F1 fan. Started with Michael Schumacher and uh, his quest of winning a Formula One championship when his car
Hmm.
was not the best.
Hmm.
So that sort of got me hooked, and the Häkkinen and Schumacher saga, in terms of rivalry, is just amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm passionate about cars. Grew up in Delhi, so passionate about cars. So and speed. So yeah, so that's where it sort of started. Michael Schumacher is the only reason probably that I have, and now I'm a big fan of Verstappen now.
Hmm.
So I enjoy cars and these heroes.
Okay, that's interesting. And nothing like fast cars to propel your or to bring in your other interest, which is music.
Yeah.
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 So again,
So
yeah. Please go
yeah.
ahead.
So I listen to fusion music a lot. A fusion in terms of the drums and the traditional music. Uh, I used to love metal at one point in time. Yeah, now
Hmm.
I've sort of reduced my metal
Okay.
this thing, but otherwise, yeah, these two things really, rock and fusion music is something that I really love.
Sure. Sure. Thanks, Vinod. I think that's what we had time for, and it's been a nice casual conversation with a lot of insights, starting from the way you perceive your journey and how you picked up those opportunities, to the evolving role of CFOs, down to the kind of skill sets, automation. So I think in the short time that we had, we were able to kind of probably touch upon diverse aspects. And it was interesting to hear your own perspective. And it was kind of reflective of the experience that you bring to the table and what you've personally gone through. And given the fact that you continue to strive, you continue to push yourself, so it all comes. There is kind of walking the talk, if I could say that, and that kind of adds its own credence to the entire story that you put out for us. Thanks once again, Vinod, for your time. Viewers, thank you for logging in and listening to this. I do hope this was insightful. At least it was extremely insightful for me, and I'm sure you would have found it no different. Do continue to follow us on social media and keep track of the shows that are going to come up in the future. All the very best to each one of you. Take care. Have a wonderful year ahead and stay safe. Yeah. Thanks, Vinod.
Thanks, Sriram, and thanks to the lovely audience. Thank you.